Hello and welcome to Venture Deep. Tonight, we will be drifting into why no one's allowed to explore the Antarctic. Sit back and relax so I can take you on a gentle ride where nothing else matters. The Antarctic, the coldest and most remote continent on Earth, is a place of breathtaking beauty and staggering mystery. Yet it remains one of the least explored regions in human history, a land where ice stretches endlessly across the horizon, and the silence is so profound that even the wind feels ancient. And although many dream of setting foot on this frozen desert, the truth is that strict rules, harsh climates, and international treaties have made it nearly impossible for ordinary people to freely explore it. Because Antarctica is not just a frozen wasteland, it is a natural laboratory of global importance, where scientists study climate patterns, ancient ice cores, and rare ecosystems that reveal secrets of Earth's past, present, and future. And that is why access is tightly controlled, for the environment is extremely fragile, and even the smallest human disturbance can leave permanent scars. As every footprint, every bit of waste, every trace of fuel can alter the pristine balance of this frozen wilderness. And beyond environmental reasons, the Antarctic is a place of unimaginable danger, where temperatures can drop below -80 degrees Celsius, where blizzards can rage for weeks without pause, and where even the most advanced equipment can fail in the blink of an eye. And these extreme conditions mean that survival without proper preparation is virtually impossible, which is why governments and international organizations limit exploration to only trained scientists and authorized missions. Yet some believe the restrictions are not only about safety, but also about secrecy, as Antarctica has become a magnet for theories and speculation. With whispers of hidden military bases, ancient civilizations buried beneath the ice, and resources so valuable that nations compete silently in the background, all while presenting a united front under the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed in 1959 to ensure that the continent remains dedicated to peace and science, banning military activity, nuclear testing, and territorial ownership, meaning no single country owns Antarctica, and no one is allowed to exploit it for personal gain, making it a rare example of global cooperation, but also a locked treasure chest that few are ever permitted to open. And even tourism, though possible, is highly restricted, with strict guidelines that prevent visitors from wandering freely, requiring permits, escorts, and adherence to environmental codes. So while some adventurers do reach its icy edges on guided tours, true exploration, the kind where you set out into the vast unknowns forbidden, for the risks to both people and planet are deemed too great. And so Antarctica remains a place of both allure and prohibition, where human curiosity collides with human responsibility, where the harshness of nature enforces boundaries that politics has already drawn. And as the world grows warmer and nations grow hungrier for resources, questions about who controls the Antarctic grow sharper, yet the restrictions remain, reminding us that not every corner of Earth is ours to conquer, that some places must remain untamed, and that perhaps in its forbidding silence, Antarctica teaches us the rare lesson of restraint, forcing us to admire from afar what we cannot fully possess. And so the frozen continent endures as the last true wilderness, a place where no one is allowed to freely explore, not because it lacks value, but because it holds too much a land of icy secrets preserved under eternal snow, waiting silently at the bottom of the world. The frozen frontier at the edge of the world Antarctica is not just another continent. It is the most extreme, remote, and unforgiving place on Earth. A land wrapped in ice, so thick it holds most of the planet's fresh water, yet remains almost entirely inaccessible to the average human being. The vast white expanse stretches endlessly in every direction, with mountains buried beneath glaciers and valleys carved by centuries of frozen winds. Here, temperatures plunge lower than anywhere else, storms rise with terrifying power, and survival is not simply difficult, it is nearly impossible without the highest level of preparation. Unlike other wildernesses where explorers can push through with grit and determination, Antarctica is nature's ultimate barrier, a place where the rules of ordinary adventure do not apply. Every step across its icy surface comes with the risk of frostbite, hypothermia, and disorientation, where even a moment of carelessness can be fatal. For these reasons, Antarctica is seen less as a destination for casual exploration and more as a forbidden frontier, a place that challenges the very limits of human endurance and defies our attempts to claim it as our own. A land governed by global treaty. Like any other continent, Antarctica does not belong to a single nation. Instead, it is protected under the Antarctic Treaty, an extraordinary agreement signed in 1959 and maintained by dozens of countries. This treaty designates the frozen land as a place of peace, scientific discovery, and environmental preservation, forbidding military bases, nuclear testing, or permanent settlements. By keeping Antarctica neutral ground, the world has ensured that no country can exploit it for resources or colonization, creating a unique situation where exploration is bound by international law. This legal structure makes casual exploration impossible, as entry requires strict permits, approvals, and adherence to regulations designed to protect both people and the environment. Unlike deserts, mountains, or jungles, where one can simply venture with courage and tools, Antarctica is shielded by bureaucracy and diplomacy, guarded as a global treasure rather than an open frontier. In this way, the treaty locks the continent in a kind of frozen vault, one that can be opened only by scientists, researchers, or those with specific authorization, leaving the rest of the world to gaze at it from afar. The harshest climate on Earth. If laws and treaties do not stop people, the climate surely does, for Antarctica is a land of extremes unmatched anywhere else. The continent holds the record for the coldest temperature ever recorded, a staggering minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, where metal can snap like glass and human skin freezes within seconds. Even during its so-called summer months, the icy winds tear across the land with speeds that can exceed hurricanes, turning the simplest journey into a deadly ordeal. The long polar nights leave the continent in complete darkness for months, disorienting and chilling anyone daring enough to remain. Unlike places where explorers can rely on natural resources for survival, Antarctica offers no wood for fire, no edible plants, and no accessible fresh water beyond frozen ice. Every ounce of fuel, food, and shelter must be brought in, making prolonged exploration nearly impossible without massive logistical support. It is a world designed to repel intruders, a frozen fortress where survival is a victory in itself. and where every step deeper into its icy heart is another step closer to danger, protecting a fragile ecosystem beneath its appearance as a lifeless, frozen desert. Antarctica is home to delicate ecosystems that thrive under extreme conditions. And this is one of the main reasons exploration is restricted. Penguins, seals, whales, and unique microorganisms depend on the pristine environment, one that can be disrupted by even the smallest human interference. Unlike other places on Earth that have evolved to withstand centuries of human contact, Antarctica's ecosystems remain untouched, making them extremely vulnerable to pollution, waste, and disturbance. A single footprint in moss can take decades to fade, and spilled fuel can poison ice that has been pure for millennia. The Antarctic Treaty and its environmental protocols ensure that no large-scale exploration or exploitation can take place, as the balance here is too fragile to risk. Scientists who visit and avoiding unnecessary disturbance, because once the environment is damaged, it cannot easily recover. Exploration, in this sense, is not just forbidden by law, but by responsibility, as humanity bears the duty to preserve one of the last truly unspoiled places on Earth. The danger of hidden hunscapes. Antarctica's icy blanket hides more than it reveals, and this makes exploration even more dangerous than it appears. Beneath the glaciers lie vast subglacial lakes, mountains taller than the Alps, and valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, all concealed under miles of ice. These hidden features are treacherous to explorers, as crevasses open without warning, swallowing anything that dares to cross them. Snow can cover these fractures like a fragile roof, giving the illusion of solid ground until it collapses underfoot. Without advanced technology, such as ground-penetrating radar, navigating these hidden dangers is almost impossible. Many early explorers perished in such conditions, vanishing into the icy depths, never to be found again. Even today, with satellites and modern equipment, the hidden landscapes of Antarctica remain perilous, reminding us that the continent is not a place for unchecked adventure, but a domain that demands respect, caution, and strict control. The cost of exploration, if someone were brave enough to face the cold, storms, and dangers, the sheer cost of exploring Antarctica makes it out of reach for most of humanity. To mount an expedition requires millions of dollars, specialized equipment, and support from ships or aircraft capable of withstanding the polar environment. Fuel must be imported, food rationed, and shelters designed to withstand months of sub-zero temperatures. Unlike deserts or mountains, where explorers can travel with minimal gear, Antarctica requires an entire infrastructure just to survive a few weeks. Governments and research institutions pool resources. This economic barrier ensures that exploration remains restricted, not because of a lack of curiosity, but because of the overwhelming resources needed to make it possible. In a sense, Antarctica is not only a frozen wasteland, but also a frozen vault, one that demands a fortune to even attempt to unlock. Myths, secrets, and speculations. The restricted nature of Antarctica has fueled endless theories and speculations, adding another layer to why exploration is so tightly controlled. Some believe that governments are hiding ancient civilizations buried beneath the ice, while others suggest the presence of secret military installations or untapped resources. that nations quietly guard. UFO sightings and mysterious structures visible in satellite images have only intensified public fascination, painting Antarctica as a land of hidden truths. While science attributes much of this mystery to natural formations and human imagination, the secrecy surrounding access continues to feed speculation. The fact that no ordinary person can freely wander across Antarctica makes it fertile ground for myth, as what we cannot see becomes the canvas for endless stories. Whether true or not, these tales add another reason exploration is restricted, as powerful nations have no interest in dispelling myths if secrecy serves their purpose. A laboratory for global science beyond myths. Antarctica is one of the most valuable scientific laboratories on Earth, and this is another reason exploration is controlled. Scientists study ancient ice cores that reveal Earth's climate history stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, offering insights into global warming and environmental change. Astronomers take advantage of the clear skies and minimal interference to observe the universe, while biologists discover microorganisms that thrive under extreme conditions, possibly offering clues to life beyond Earth. This scientific significance makes Antarctica too important to be left to free exploration, as uncontrolled human presence could damage research sites and compromise findings. Every expedition is carefully planned and monitored, with scientists prioritizing preservation over adventure. Thus, exploration is not forbidden because the land is useless, but because it is invaluable. A natural archive of Earth's past and a key to its future, guarded for the sake of knowledge. Tourism with boundaries, while total exploration is forbidden. Limited tourism does exist, but even that comes with heavy restrictions. Visitors arrive on guided cruises or flights, never allowed to venture freely into the wilderness. They follow strict codes, such as staying at a distance from wildlife, cleaning their clothes to prevent introducing foreign species, and leaving nothing behind. Tourists may walk on the ice, marvel at penguins, and witness glaciers up close. But this is a carefully curated experience, not true exploration. Authorities limit the number of visitors each year, ensuring that Antarctica does not become overwhelmed by human presence. Even so, tourism is controversial, as critics argue that any non-scientific presence risks damaging the fragile environment. In this way, tourism shows both the allure and the limits of Antarctica can be admired and experienced, but never truly explored, always reminding visitors that they are guests in a place that does not belong to them. The last untamed wilderness. Ultimately, the reason no one is allowed to explore Antarctica freely is that it is one of the last untouched places on Earth, and perhaps the only one left that remains truly wild. In a world where mountains have been climbed, forests logged, oceans fished, and deserts crossed, Antarctica stands as a reminder that not everything can or should be conquered. Its restrictions are not a punishment, but a preservation, ensuring that the icy continent remains pure, scientific, and beyond exploitation. By keeping exploration forbidden, humanity acknowledges its limits, respecting a place too fragile, too dangerous, and too valuable to be consumed by curiosity alone. Antarctica's silence and isolation serve as a lesson in restraint, showing us that some frontiers are meant to remain untamed, not because they cannot be reached, but because they must be protected. In that sense, the continent is not just ice and snow, it is a sanctuary of nature, a frozen guardian at the bottom of the world, the ice that holds the worlds. Future Antarctica's ice sheet is not just frozen water. It is the largest reservoir of fresh water on the planet, holding nearly 70% of Earth's supply. If this ice were to melt, sea levels would rise by over 200 feet, flooding coastal cities and reshaping continents. This staggering fact makes the continent critical to global stability, which is why unrestricted exploration is forbidden. Scientists carefully monitor the ice, drilling cores that reveal thousands of years of climate history, but every action is measured to prevent disturbance. If humans were to recklessly explore, build bases, or mine resources, they could destabilize the fragile balance, accelerating, melting, and threatening the world. The Antarctic is not just a frozen land, it's a frozen vault holding the key to humanity's survival. And thus, it is guarded not as a prize to conquer, but as a responsibility to protect. The perils of endless darkness for much of the year. Above the horizon, during this polar night, temperatures drop even further, and the land becomes an abyss of cold and shadow. Exploration in such conditions is not only dangerous, but nearly impossible, as navigation, survival, and communication become unbearable challenges. The human body and mind are not built to withstand such extended darkness, and even trained researchers experience psychological strain from isolation. This is another reason the continent remains forbidden to casual exploration. It is not just a land of ice, but a land of extremes that test the very limits of human endurance. To venture into the darkness without extensive preparation is to invite disaster. And so the rules that keep explorers away are as much about protecting lives as they are about protecting the land. A place beyond human ownership, and like any other region on Earth, Antarctica belongs to no one and everyone at the same time. The Antarctic Treaty created a unique system where no nation can claim sovereignty, and this makes free exploration impossible. If one group were allowed to roam and exploit, others would demand the same, leading to conflict and chaos. By keeping exploration tightly regulated, the world avoids disputes and ensures that Antarctica remains a place of peace. This rare example of collective restraint shows that some parts of the Earth must exist outside the reach of flags and borders. The continent stands as a reminder that not all frontiers are meant for conquest, and that ownership sometimes means responsibility rather than possession. Exploration is forbidden because opening the gates to one group would mean opening them to all, and that could endanger the very spirit of unity that Antarctica represents. The hidden world lies a secret world, including more than 400 subglacial lakes sealed off for millions of years. These untouched waters may harbor unique life forms that have never seen the light of day, making them scientific treasures. Yet their fragility is exactly why unrestricted exploration is banned. If outside bacteria or pollutants were introduced, they could forever alter these ecosystems before we even understood them. When scientists do study these hidden worlds, they use sterile techniques, drilling carefully to avoid contamination, a process that takes years of planning. Allowing ordinary exploration would risk losing these ancient laboratories of evolution forever. Thus, the continent remains protected not just for its icy surface, but for the mysterious worlds concealed beneath, places that could reveal the origins of life itself. The threat of resource exploitation beneath Antarctica's ice lie, vast deposits of coal, oil, gas, and valuable minerals resources that could fuel nations for centuries. But tapping into them would require tearing apart the continent's fragile environment, an act forbidden by international agreements. The Antarctic Treaty specifically bans resource exploitation, recognizing that short-term profit would bring irreversible damage. Free exploration risks tempting nations or individuals into illegal mining or drilling, and so access is tightly controlled. Unlike other places where resources can be extracted and ecosystems rebuilt, Antarctica cannot recover from such scars. By forbidding exploration, humanity protects itself from greed, ensuring that the frozen land remains a sanctuary rather than a battlefield for resources. This rule transforms Antarctica into a symbol of restraint, showing that some riches must remain buried for the sake of the world. A history of deadly expeditions, the tales of early Antarctic explorers are filled with both bravery and tragedy, and their stories serve as warnings for why modern exploration is so restricted. Figures like Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton pushed into the frozen unknown, battling starvation, frostbite, and the merciless cold. Many never returned, their bodies claimed by the ice, leaving only journals and broken camps as testimony to their struggles. These expeditions showed the world that Antarctica is unlike any other frontier, a land where courage is not enough to guarantee survival. Today, the deaths of those pioneers are not forgotten, and the rules that now forbid casual exploration are, in many ways, written in their memory. To wander freely in Antarctica is not only reckless but disrespectful to the sacrifices of those who proved that the land is a natural fortress against human ambition. The silence of a living time capsule. Antarctica is often called a time capsule of Earth's history, a place where snow has fallen for millions of years, preserving the past. In frozen layers, every flake that settles becomes a page in the story of the planet, storing records of volcanic eruptions, atmospheric changes, and even ancient air bubbles. To freely explore would mean disturbing this frozen archive, trampling evidence that could change how we understand climate, evolution, and natural history. For this reason, only scientists with strict methods are allowed access, carefully collecting data without destroying what cannot be replaced. The forbidden nature of exploration is thus an act of preservation, ensuring that Antarctica remains not just a wilderness, but a library of ice, holding knowledge too precious to risk losing. The unforgiving logistics of survival. Exploring Antarctica is not like hiking through a forest or climbing a mountain. It requires a massive web of support just to keep people alive. Supplies must be flown or shipped in, equipment must withstand extreme cold, and shelters must be built to resist endless storms. If one thing fails, whether it be heating, navigation, or communication, lives are instantly endangered. These logistical challenges make independent exploration impossible, and so only carefully coordinated missions are permitted. The restrictions prevent reckless adventurers from attempting the impossible and dying in the attempt. Antarctica is not a land where survival depends on skill, alone it depends on an entire infrastructure that most individuals cannot access. Thus, the rules that forbid exploration are not barriers to curiosity, but shields against inevitable tragedy. The global symbol of peace more than just ice and snow, Antarctica has become a global symbol of peace, cooperation, and shared responsibility. While other continents have been divided by war, colonization, and exploitation, Antarctica stands as an exception, a place where nations agreed to protect rather than conquer. Allowing free exploration would risk undermining this fragile unity, as competition and conflict would soon follow. By keeping exploration forbidden, the continent remains a beacon of what humanity can achieve when it chooses preservation over domination. Antarctica is not just an empty wilderness. It is a statement, a reminder that the world can sometimes come together to safeguard what is sacred. Exploration is restricted not only to protect the land, but to protect the spirit of peace it represents. A spirit too rare to risk breaking. The continent that guards its own secrets in the end. Antarctica is not just forbidden by law, politics, or logistics. It is forbidden by nature itself. The storms, the ice, the darkness, the hidden landscapes all conspire to keep the continent's secrets locked away. Humanity may dream of exploring every inch, but the land resists with a silent defiance. This is why Antarctica fascinates us, because it is the one place left on Earth that remains beyond our full control. By forbidding exploration, we acknowledge that not everything must bend to human will. The Antarctic remains a guardian of mysteries, a frozen frontier at the edge of imagination, where what we cannot see fuels our curiosity, and what we cannot touch strengthens our humility. In this way, the forbidden continent teaches us that some secrets are best preserved in silence, hidden beneath eternal ice at the bottom of the world, the coldest desert on Earth. When most people think of a desert, they imagine sand dunes and scorching heat, but Antarctica is the largest desert on Earth, defined not by temperature, but by lack of precipitation. Some regions of the continent receive less moisture than the Sahara, making them unimaginably dry, even though ice stretches endlessly in all directions. This paradox creates conditions unlike anywhere else, where explorers cannot rely on rivers, lakes, or even snowmelt for water without energy-intensive methods. Free exploration in such an environment is impossible without technology to convert ice into drinkable water and sustain human life. The desert-like dryness also means that fragile microbial life, rare and ancient, can be disrupted by even minimal human contact. For this reason, exploration is not only forbidden by treaties, but by the land itself, a frozen desert where survival is an unnatural act. The dangers of isolationing, like other wildernesses, Antarctica is thousands of miles away from civilization, making rescue missions nearly impossible. If explorers encounter trouble, whether from injury, equipment failure, or whether help cannot arrive quickly, sometimes not at all, aircraft cannot land during storms, ships cannot break through heavy pack ice year-round, and communication often falters under extreme conditions. This isolation turns even minor problems into life-threatening crises, and so unrestricted exploration would inevitably lead to tragedy. To prevent needless loss of life, access is tightly controlled, ensuring that only those with comprehensive support systems can enter. Antarctica is not a place for impulsive journeys. It is a land where being stranded means being forgotten by the outside world. In this way, the continent itself enforces its own restrictions, reminding us that isolation can be as deadly as cold. Preserving the purity of the air, Antarctica has some of the cleanest air on the planet, free from pollutants that plague every other continent. Scientists study this pure atmosphere to understand global pollution, climate change, and the chemical composition of Earth's skies. Free exploration with fuel-burning vehicles, careless camps, and waste would pollute this delicate environment and compromise decades of research. Unlike forests or oceans, where pollution disperses and ecosystems adapt, Antarctica's stillness traps every trace of human presence, allowing contamination to linger for years. This is why strict rules forbid open exploration. The air here is more than just a breath of cold. It is a scientific resource, a natural record of Earth before industrialization. Preserving this purity requires restraint, making Antarctica not a playground for explorers, but a protected sanctuary of air and sky. The magnetic mysteries of the pole. Antarctica is home to the South Magnetic Pole, a shifting and mysterious point that plays a crucial role in Earth's magnetic field. Explorers throughout history have sought this place, but its location changes constantly, drifting across the ice due to movements within Earth's core. Studying it requires advanced equipment and careful observation, not reckless adventure. Unrestricted exploration risks, introducing interference that could compromise sensitive measurements of the planet's magnetic field. For this reason, access is reserved for scientists, ensuring the pole remains a site of discovery rather than disruption. The forbidden nature of exploration is not about keeping secrets, but about protecting the integrity of research that helps us understand navigation, space weather, and Earth's inner mechanics. In this way, the continent guards not just its surface, but the invisible forces that shape the world. The psychological toll of endless white exploring Antarctica is not just a physical challenge, it is a mental one. The endless white landscape, stretching without trees, color, or variation, overwhelms the human mind. Explorers experience polar fatigue, disorientation, and even hallucinations from sensory deprivation. In such conditions, decision-making falters, and accidents become more likely. Scientists working in Antarctica are trained to handle this psychological strain, but casual explorers would face dangers they cannot anticipate. The rules that forbid exploration are, in part, protection against these invisible threats, as the human mind is not built to thrive in such monotony. Antarctica's beauty can quickly transform into a prison of white, reminding us that some frontiers test not just our bodies, but our sanity. The constant threat of blizzards. Antarctica's storms are unlike any other, capable of lasting for weeks, with winds that exceed hurricane strength. These blizzards reduce visibility to nothing, burying equipment, vehicles, and even camps under drifting snow. Exploration during such storms is suicide, as people lose their sense of direction and freeze before finding shelter. The unpredictability of these storms means that exploration cannot be planned with certainty. Conditions can change in minutes, trapping even the most experienced travelers. To protect lives, Exploration is heavily restricted, limited to those prepared for sudden and prolonged confinement. Unlike mountains where climbers can sometimes wait out storms, Antarctica offers no guarantee of survival, making free exploration not just dangerous but irresponsible. The rules exist because nature enforces them first, and in Antarctica, the blizzard is the ultimate law. Antarctica's role in global climate. The frozen continent is not just isolated land, it is a regulator of Earth's climate system. Its ice reflects sunlight, cooling the planet, while its winds and currents influence weather patterns worldwide. Free exploration and exploitation risk disrupting this delicate balance, whether through pollution, construction, or resource extraction. The restrictions on exploration ensure that Antarctica remains a stabilizing force for the world rather than a victim of human activity. Scientists study the continent precisely because its influence extends beyond its icy borders, shaping rain, storms, and temperatures across the globe. To disturb Antarctica is to disturb the Earth itself, and this truth forms the foundation of the rules that forbid exploration. The land remains untouchable, not because it is irrelevant, but because it is essential. A continent without permanent humans, like other regions. Antarctica has no native human population, no villages, no tribes, no history of settlement. It is the only continent on Earth that has never been permanently inhabited, and this makes it truly unique. Allowing unrestricted exploration would break this purity, introducing permanent traces of humanity where none belong. The absence of human history is part of what makes Antarctica precious, a place that exists outside the story of civilization. The rules that forbid exploration are, in essence, protecting this absence, ensuring that Antarctica remains the only place where Earth's natural history stands untouched by our hands. To explore freely would be to erase the one continent where the human footprint is still light and temporary, a frontier meant to remain unclaimed. The risk of biological contamination, one of the greatest dangers of unrestricted exploration, is the risk of introducing foreign microbes or plants into Antarctica's isolated environment. Even a single bacterium or seed carried unintentionally could alter fragile ecosystems forever. Scientists follow strict sterilization protocols when entering sensitive areas, knowing that contamination could wipe out ancient microbial communities or disturb wildlife. For this reason, ordinary explorers are not allowed, as the risk of biological invasion is too great. Unlike other continents that have adapted to centuries of exchange, Antarctica has been isolated for millions of years. Its ecosystems are too vulnerable to survive careless human contact. Exploration is forbidden not to protect us from the land, but to protect the land from us, preserving its purity against the invisible threats we carry. The land that defines human limits. In the end, Antarctica is more than ice, snow, and treaties. It is the ultimate test of human limits. It represents a place where ambition collides with reality, where exploration is forbidden, not by choice alone, but by necessity. The restrictions are reminders that humanity cannot conquer everything, that some frontiers are meant to remain outside. Our grasp to explore Antarctica freely would be to ignore the lessons of history, science, and nature. Lessons that tell us survival is fragile and ecosystems are irreplaceable. By forbidding exploration, the world preserves Antarctica as a mirror of humility, showing us that restraint is sometimes the greatest act of strength. The continent remains untamed, a frozen guardian of the limits of human power. And in its silence, it whispers that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. The weight of eternal ice. Antarctica's ice sheet is so massive that it literally shapes the earth beneath it, pressing down the continent's crust with unimaginable weight. If humans attempted unrestricted exploration or exploitation, the consequences could go far beyond local damage, altering the delicate balance of ice, land, and sea. Scientists monitor this weight to understand tectonic movements and sea level changes, but careless exploration could interfere with sensitive research. Unlike other regions, where human impact is gradual, Antarctica's balance is so precise that even small disturbances can ripple outward. The land's sheer weight is both its power and its vulnerability, making exploration forbidden not just for safety, but for the sake of global stability. Here, the ice is not just frozen water, is the heaviest shield on Earth, guarding secrets too vast to be tampered with. The long memory of the Antarctic ice is not only heavy, it remembers trapped within its frozen layers are air bubbles, dust, and chemicals that record Earth's past climates, stretching back nearly 1 million years. This frozen memory is one of science's most precious archives, allowing us to understand global warming, ancient atmospheres, and cycles of natural change. Unrestricted exploration would risk contaminating or destroying these records, erasing knowledge that cannot be replaced. Scientists take extraordinary care when drilling cores, ensuring that no outside pollutants enter, for even the smallest contamination would distort history. This is why exploration is forbidden to most. It is not about hiding the past, but preserving it. Antarctica holds the memory of Earth itself, and humanity has a duty to protect that memory rather than erase it in pursuit of adventure. The invisible dangers of thin ice. While Antarctica appears to be one giant sheet of solid ice, much of it is riddled with hidden dangers. Thin ice covers lakes, cracks, and unstable ground, creating traps that explorers may not notice until it is too late. A single misstep can send someone plunging into freezing water or collapsing snow caves. These dangers are impossible to detect with the naked eye, requiring radar, technology, and constant vigilance. For this reason, free exploration is not only forbidden, but suicidal. The ice is not eroded, is a minefield of invisible hazards, waiting for the unprepared to step wrong. By restricting access, the world acknowledges that survival here requires more than courage. It requires technology and discipline. The continent enforces its secrecy with traps of ice, making freedom of movement a deadly illusion. The mystery of hidden lakes beneath the Antarctic ice lie secret subglacial lakes, sealed away for millions of years from sunlight and air. These lakes, such as Lake Vostok, may harbor unique forms of life, offering clues about evolution on Earth and even on other planets. However, they are so fragile that unrestricted exploration could contaminate or destroy them before their secrets are revealed. Scientists drill carefully, using sterile techniques, but even they approach with caution. Allowing ordinary exploration would risk irreversible harm, ending research before it truly begins. These hidden lakes are natural laboratories of the unknown, protected by miles of ice and international law. Exploration is forbidden because discovery must come with patience and respect, not reckless intrusion. Antarctica is not just a continent, it is a vault of ancient waters, holding secrets too delicate for careless hands. The winds that rule the continent Antarctica is shaped by the katabatic winds, powerful air currents that sweep down from the interior toward the coast, reaching speeds stronger than hurricanes. These winds create constant storms, sculpt the ice, and make survival nearly impossible for untrained explorers. Unlike breezes in other parts of the world, these winds can freeze exposed skin instantly, tear apart tents, and bury camps in drifting snow. Free exploration in such conditions would lead to disaster after disaster, overwhelming rescue efforts. Scientists and support teams survive only by building specialized shelters and using advanced equipment. The rules that forbid exploration are, in part, defenses against these winds, which punish any attempt to treat the continent casually. In Antarctica, the air itself is an enemy, and only strict control keeps humanity safe from its force. The dangers of infinite daylight, while the polar night brings months of darkness. The Antarctic summer brings its own challenge, months of endless daylight. For explorers, this constant sun disrupts natural rhythms, preventing sleep, confusing the body's clock, and causing fatigue and disorientation. The mind begins to lose track of time, and exhaustion becomes a constant threat. Scientists cope with strict schedules and controlled environments, but ordinary adventurers would be overwhelmed by the strain. Exploration is forbidden because the land is not simply hostile in darkness, but in light as well. Antarctica teaches us that extremes of both absence and abundance can be equally dangerous, reminding us that not all beauty is meant to be endured without preparation. Protecting the wildlife of the ice. Antarctica's wildlife, though sparse, is among the most iconic in the world. Penguins, seals, whales, and seabirds all depend on fragile food chains sustained by krill and fish in the icy waters. Human exploration risks disrupting these delicate balances, introducing pollution, noise, and stress to animals unaccustomed to human presence. A single careless act can frighten penguin colonies, causing parents to abandon chicks or disturb seal resting grounds, threatening entire populations. For this reason, exploration is restricted and guided by strict environmental protocols. Unlike other continents where wildlife has adapted to centuries of human intrusion, Antarctica remains pure and vulnerable. By forbidding exploration, humanity protects creatures that cannot protect themselves, preserving the last wilderness, where animals still live as they did before the rise of civilization. The ever-shifting ice shelves. Antarctica's coastline is not stable land, but massive ice shelves, floating platforms of ice that constantly crack, shift, and break away into the ocean. These shelves can collapse without warning, creating waves, crevasses, and hazards that no explorer can predict. To wander freely across them is to court disaster, as the ground beneath your feet may not exist tomorrow. Scientists study these shelves to understand climate change, but exploration for adventure alone is forbidden. The ice is alive, moving, and reshaping itself daily, a reminder that Antarctica is not a static land, but a dynamic system. By restricting access, humanity respects the unpredictable power of the shelves, avoiding tragedies that history has already proven inevitable for the unprepared. The hidden volcanoes beneath the ice field know that Antarctica is home to dozens of volcanoes, some of them still active beneath the thick ice. Mount Erebus, one of the southernmost volcanoes on Earth, even hosts a permanent lava lake hidden in the frozen wilderness. Beneath the surface, geothermal activity shapes the land in ways that remain mysterious, creating potential hazards for exploration. These volcanoes may also influence the stability of ice sheets, making the region even more unpredictable. Free exploration would put lives at risk, exposing people to dangers they cannot see or prepare for. Scientists study these volcanoes carefully, but the continent's fire beneath the ice is one more reason why exploration is forbidden. Antarctica is not just frozen silence, it is a land where hidden forces stir, waiting beneath the cold to remind us of nature's power, a reminder of human limits in the end. Antarctica's forbidden status is not just about treaties, science, or danger. It is about reminding humanity of its limits. In an age where technology gives us the illusion of control, the frozen continent stands as proof that some places cannot be conquered without consequences. By forbidding exploration, we preserve not only the land, but our own humility, accepting that Earth is larger, harsher, and more powerful than we are. Antarctica is the last wilderness, the last mystery, and perhaps the last lesson humanity must learn, that respect and restraint are forms of wisdom. To explore freely would be to ignore the warnings of nature and history, and so the restrictions endure, keeping Antarctica untamed, untouched, and eternal. The ocean that guards the ice surrounding Antarctica is the Southern Ocean, a ring of turbulent waters that act as a natural barrier against exploration. These seas are some of the roughest in the world, with waves taller than buildings and currents that trap even the strongest ships. Icebergs drift unpredictably, carving silent paths of destruction through vessels that dare approach. For centuries, sailors called these waters cursed, and even today, modern ships must prepare for constant danger. The ocean itself prevents casual access to the continent, turning the journey into a test of survival before explorers even see the ice. By forbidding free exploration, the world avoids tragedies at sea, acknowledging that Antarctica is not only defended by its ice, but by the waters that surround it. The sea is its first shield, and it shows no mercy. The risk of international conflict allowing free exploration of Antarctica would open the door to competing national interests, resource claims, and territorial disputes. Although the Antarctic Treaty prevents such conflicts, the temptation of minerals, oil, and untapped land could reignite rivalries. Restricting exploration ensures that nations cooperate instead of clash, maintaining the continent as a place of peace. Without these restrictions, Antarctica could become another battlefield, not of weapons, but of greed. Exploration is forbidden to prevent the kind of disputes that scarred other parts of the world through colonization and conquest. By keeping Antarctica neutral, humanity preserves the rare example of unity. The rules may feel like barriers to adventure, but they are walls against war, protecting the frozen land from the chaos of human ambition. The enigma of alien comparisons. Antarctica is often compared to extraterrestrial worlds. Its frozen deserts resembling Mars and its subglacial lakes resembling moons like Europa or Enceladus. Scientists use the continent as a testing ground for space exploration, but this also means it must remain pristine. Free exploration would contaminate the environment, compromising its role as Earth's closest mirror to alien worlds. If we wish to search for life beyond our planet, we must keep Antarctica as untouched as possible, a natural laboratory that shows us how life survives in extremes. This makes unrestricted exploration impossible. Antarctica is too valuable as a stand-in for the cosmos. By protecting it, humanity prepares for journeys far beyond Earth, proving that not all frontiers must be physically conquered to reveal their secrets. The burial ground of past explorers, Antarctica holds the remains of those who braved it centuries ago. From the failed expeditions of Scott to the countless unnamed sailors lost at sea, their bodies often remain preserved in the ice, frozen in time, silent monuments to human ambition. Free exploration risks disturbing these sacred sites, turning places of tragedy into spectacles. Instead, the continent is left undisturbed, its icy ground a cemetery of history, to protect the dignity of those who perished and to remind us of the dangers they faced. Exploration is restricted. Antarctica is more than wilderness. It is a memorial, written not in stone but in ice, where the sacrifices of the past still rest. It remains untouched, out of respect as much as out of necessity. The threat of disease in isolation. Exploring Antarctica poses risks not only to the land but to humans themselves. The extreme environment weakens immune systems, while the isolation means medical emergencies are nearly impossible to treat. A simple illness could spread rapidly among a small group with no hospital or rescue team able to help. Scientists visiting the continent undergo strict health checks and quarantine periods, but ordinary explorers would bring danger both to themselves and to others. Exploration is forbidden not only to protect the land, but to protect human life in a place where survival is already fragile. Antarctica reminds us that health is a luxury of civilization, and in the frozen wilderness, even the smallest sickness can be deadly. The silence that becomes a threat. Antarctica is the quietest place on Earth, with vast stretches where no sound exists beyond the crack of ice or the howl of wind. For explorers, this silence can become unbearable, amplifying isolation and creating psychological stress. Without the familiar noises of life, the human mind begins to fill the emptiness with fear, anxiety, or even hallucinations. Scientists who work there are trained to handle this silence, but unprepared explorers could lose their grip on reality. The restrictions protect not only the land, but the sanity of those who might underestimate it. Antarctica's silence is beautiful but merciless, a reminder that nature's stillness can be just as dangerous as its storms. To forbid exploration is to protect humanity from an emptiness it is not built to endure. The ever-moving glaciers. Antarctica's glaciers are not frozen in place, they are rivers of ice, slowly moving toward the sea, reshaping the land as they go. These massive flows create cracks, avalanches, and shifting landscapes that make exploration dangerous. What seems solid one day may be treacherous the next. Unlike mountains that stand still or deserts that shift predictably, Glaciers are silent giants that carve the land beneath without warning. To walk across them freely is to step onto a moving world, one that does not care for human presence. Restrictions prevent explorers from becoming victims of these frozen rivers. Recognizing that nature here is not fixed but alive, Antarctica is not a land that waits, it is a land that moves, and humanity must respect its restless flow. The sacredness of the unknown part of the reason Antarctica remains forbidden is philosophical as much as practical. In a world where nearly every inch of land has been mapped, tamed, and exploited, Antarctica remains one of the last true unknowns. To allow free exploration would strip it of that mystery, turning the final wilderness into just another conquered place. By restricting access, the world preserves its sense of awe and humility, reminding us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Antarctica stands as a sacred unknown, a symbol of what lies beyond our reach. Exploration is forbidden, not out of cruelty, but out of reverence, for the land's greatest value may be its untouched silence. In that silence, humanity finds something rare: wonder. A test humanity cannot afford to fail. Antarctica represents a test of whether humanity can resist temptation. With its hidden resources, mysteries, and potential, the frozen land challenges us to choose preservation over exploitation. Free exploration would almost certainly lead to harm, but restraint proves we can act with wisdom. The restrictions are not just laws, they are lessons, teaching future generations that stewardship matters more than conquest. If we fail Antarctica, we prove we cannot be trusted with other frontiers, whether on Earth or beyond. Exploration is forbidden because the continent itself is a trial, a frozen challenge to human values. By leaving it protected, humanity shows that it can grow beyond greed, respecting what must remain untouched, the living symbol of Earth's endurance in the end. Antarctica is not simply a forbidden land, it is a living symbol of Earth's endurance. Through ice ages, extinctions, and global changes, it has remained frozen at the bottom of the world, a monument to time itself. To explore it freely would be to diminish that endurance, turning permanence into vulnerability. By forbidding exploration, humanity acknowledges Antarctica's role as more than land. It is a guardian, a witness, and a reminder of our planet's resilience. It stands untouched because it must stand untouched, carrying within it the story of Earth and the silence of ages. Antarctica is not forbidden because it is weak, is forbidden because it is strong, too strong, and too eternal to be treated as ordinary ground. It is the last sanctuary of Earth, and it must remain so. The ice that holds the world's future, Antarctica, contains the majority of Earth's fresh water locked in its ice sheets. If even a fraction were to melt, sea levels would rise catastrophically, flooding cities and reshaping coastlines worldwide. Allowing unrestricted exploration risks damaging this delicate system through pollution, drilling, or human interference. The frozen reserves are not just local, they are global, holding the future of humanity within their silent depths. By forbidding casual exploration, the world acknowledges that Antarctica is not merely a place, but a safeguard for every nation. The ice must remain untouched, for to harm it is to endanger the future of life itself. Exploration is forbidden because the frozen ground is more than land, it is the balance of the earth in solid form. The challenge of endless darkness for half of the year. Antarctica plunges into complete darkness, where the sun does not rise for months at a time. This eternal night creates conditions no ordinary explorer can endure, with freezing winds and temperatures plunging lower than any other place on Earth. Navigating in such darkness is nearly impossible, and survival requires technology beyond what individuals could carry. The absence of light is not simply inconvenient, it is a barrier against human presence. Restrictions on exploration are not arbitrary. They protect people from venturing into a land where the very concept of day and night collapses. Antarctica reminds us that light itself is a privilege, and in its absence, only the strongest preparations can endure. The fragility of subglacial ecosystems beneath Antarctica. Ice lie hidden lakes and ecosystems untouched for millions of years. These worlds exist in total isolation, sealed from the surface and possibly harboring life unlike anything known. If exploration were uncontrolled, even a single trace of contamination could destroy these ecosystems forever. The restrictions ensure that only the most carefully planned scientific missions can access them, preserving their secrets for study without destruction. Antarctica is not just forbidding exploration, it is protecting life that humanity has not yet even met. In its silence, it guards ancient ecosystems, reminding us that discovery without caution is simply destruction disguised as curiosity. The prison of endless white Antarctica is a land without color, a white void stretching as far as the eye can see. This endless sameness disorients even the most skilled explorers, with no landmarks to guide the way. Snowstorms erase footprints within minutes, while compasses fail near the magnetic poles. To navigate here is to walk inside a prison of white, where every direction looks the same and the world feels infinite. Exploration without strict rules would leave countless lost, swallowed by the blankness of the land. The restrictions save lives by preventing journeys into a landscape that erases memory, direction, and hope. Antarctica is not simply white, it is the abyss in disguise. The unseen beneath the ice deep, beneath Antarctica's frozen crust, lies a hidden world of mountains, valleys, and lakes, larger than entire countries. But these secrets are unreachable without technology that risks damaging the land itself. To drill or dig carelessly is to risk breaking into environments sealed for millennia. The restrictions prevent reckless attempts to uncover what lies below, ensuring that science proceeds cautiously. Antarctica holds mysteries as vast as any on Earth, but their protection matters more than their revelation. By forbidding free exploration, humanity accepts that not all truths should be forced open. Some must remain buried in silence until they can be revealed without harm. The psychological toll of isolation like most wildernesses, Antarctica offers no villages, no animals to follow, no natural shelter, and no companionship. The isolation here is complete, stripping away every comfort humans depend on. Explorers must confront not only the cold, but the crushing loneliness, a psychological weight that can break even the strongest minds. Restrictions prevent untrained individuals from falling victim to this silent despair. Antarctica teaches that isolation is not simply being alone, it is facing a world that has no place for you. The forbidden status of exploration is also a shield against the invisible dangers of the human mind when tested against absolute solitude. The fragile web of international trust, the Antarctic Treaty, is one of the few examples of global unity where nations agreed to share rather than divide. Allowing free exploration would threaten this trust, creating competition where cooperation now stands. To preserve peace, exploration is strictly regulated, ensuring that no country gains unfair advantage. Antarctica is not forbidden because it is unworthy, but because it is too important to be fought over. The restrictions are chains of diplomacy, holding nations together through a rare example of shared responsibility. To break those chains through uncontrolled exploration would be to unravel one of the last threads of global unity. The ancient clues of climate hidden in Antarctica's ice is not just frozen water, it is a library of history. Within its layers are bubbles of ancient air, records of Earth's climate stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. To disturb this record recklessly would erase clues vital for understanding humanity's future. Exploration is restricted to ensure the ice remains a scientific archive, not a playground for adventurers. Antarctica holds within it the story of time, whispered in frozen layers. By keeping it forbidden, we ensure that the voice of the past can continue speaking, guiding us through the crises of tomorrow. Its silence is not emptiness, it is history, frozen and waiting. The burden of rescue and explorers venture into Antarctica without restrictions. Rescue missions are nearly impossible. Helicopters freeze, fuel cannot last, and storms prevent search parties from reaching the lost. Each careless expedition risks not only the lives of explorers, but also those who would attempt to save them. The restrictions exist as a protection not only for Antarctica, but for humanity itself. To forbid exploration is to prevent needless tragedy, sparing lives from dangers they cannot possibly overcome. Antarctica is not a land where mistakes can be forgiven. It is a land where a single wrong step ends a story forever. The final frontier on Earth, Antarctica, is humanity's last frontier, a land where conquest is forbidden, not by weakness, but by wisdom. To leave it untouched is to admit that not all frontiers must be claimed, not all lands must be owned, and not all mysteries must be solved. It is a symbol of restraint in a world that has conquered everything else. Exploration is forbidden because the world needs one place left wild, one sanctuary beyond the reach of greed and ambition. Antarctica is not only ice, it is the idea of untouched Earth, the dream of wilderness preserved. By keeping it forbidden, we keep hope alive that humanity can learn to leave some things as they are. The harshest climate on Earth, Antarctica, is not just cold, it is the definition of cold. Temperatures can plunge far below -80 degrees Celsius. Winds can howl at over 200 miles per hour, and blizzards can last for weeks without pause. This is not a place where normal survival is possible. Even advanced equipment fails in such extremes, with metal cracking, batteries dying, and engines freezing solid. The land is constantly reshaped by ice and snow, making navigation almost impossible. There are no landmarks, no roads, and no reliable paths, only shifting white deserts that erase footprints within minutes. These conditions create a place where exploration is not just difficult, but nearly suicidal. Human bodies cannot adapt to such extremes. Frostbite, hypothermia, and oxygen deprivation strike quickly, and death comes silently in the snow. Antarctica is forbidden not only by law, but by nature itself, as though the continent rejects humanity at every step. The restrictions on exploration are not cruel, they are merciful, shielding people from a world that would kill them before they could even understand its scale. Here, the land speaks only one word: survive if you can. And most cannot. The threat of unleashing ancient pathogens beneath the ice of Antarctica lie layers of Earth's history sealed for millions of years. Within them may be bacteria, viruses, and organisms that have been dormant since long before humanity even existed. In the frozen ground are potential threats that modern immune systems have never encountered. Diseases that could spread unchecked. If brought into the open, this is not science fiction, it is reality. Recent studies have already uncovered ancient microbes trapped in permafrost, alive despite the passage of ages. If exploration were uncontrolled, careless drilling or digging could awaken pathogens capable of spreading across the globe. Unlike ordinary dangers, these cannot be fought with weapons or avoided by fleeing. They are invisible enemies waiting silently beneath the ice. The restrictions placed on exploration act as humanity's shield, ensuring that only the most cautious, sterile, and controlled missions are allowed. Antarctica is not simply a frozen desert, it is a time capsule of biology, storing not only wonders but also dangers. To explore recklessly would be to gamble with every life on Earth. The ice does not just hide mysteries, it guards terrors too ancient and too alien for us to face unprepared. The monument of untouched wilderness Antarctica stands as the last true wilderness, a place where no highways scar the land, no cities pollute the horizon, and no industries have reshaped its bones. It is a continent that remains as Earth once was, before machines, before empires, before borders. To explore it freely would be to risk repeating the same mistakes that humanity has made everywhere else, cutting, burning, drilling, and taking until nothing is left. The restrictions exist to prevent this fate, to ensure that at least one land remains unbroken, pure, and untamed. In Antarctica, the silence is not empty, it is full, filled with the presence of a natural world unaltered by human ambition. Every iceberg, every glacier, every untouched mountain whispers of what the Earth once was. If exploration were unregulated, greed would soon follow, and the purity of the land would be lost forever. Antarctica is more than a continent. It is a monument, a reminder that some places must remain outside the reach of ownership and conquest. It is forbidden not because it is useless, but because it is priceless. And the restrictions preserve its soul for generations yet unborn. The endless night and psychological darkness few places on Earth challenge the mind as Antarctica does. For months at a time, the sun never rises, leaving the land in endless night. The human brain, wired for cycles of day and light, begins to falter under such conditions. Sleep patterns collapse, paranoia grows, and hallucinations creep into the edges of thought. In this darkness, time itself feels broken, with hours stretching endlessly and days blending into nothing. For an explorer, this is not simply an inconvenience, it is a descent into madness. The restrictions on exploration prevent untrained minds from being shattered by such isolation. Antarctica does not only freeze the body, freezes the spirit, pressing a weight of silence and darkness that can break even the strongest souls. Unlike other wildernesses, where danger comes from predators or storms, here the greatest predator is the mind itself, turning against its host in the absence of light. To forbid free exploration is not to deny adventure, but to protect sanity. Antarctica is not only dark in sight, it is dark in memory, dark in spirit. A reminder that humanity needs the sun as much as it needs breath. The fragile web of international cooperation. The world has fought wars for land, for resources, for power, but Antarctica remains an exception. The Antarctic Treaty, signed by nations across the globe, declares the land a place of peace and science, where weapons are banned, industries forbidden, and ownership denied. It is perhaps the most successful example of global unity in history. To allow uncontrolled exploration would be to threaten this fragile trust, opening the door to territorial disputes and exploitation. The restrictions are not simply environmental, they are political, designed to keep the continent free from the corruption of ambition. Antarctica is not just forbidden to protect ice and animals, it is forbidden to protect peace itself. It is a rare place where humanity's higher ideals were written into law, and to betray those ideals would be to undo decades of cooperation. The frozen continent is therefore not merely a land of snow, but a land of promises, and the restrictions ensure that those promises remain unbroken. To wander freely, there would not only endanger the land, but risk unraveling one of the few global agreements that still stand strong. The unreachable depths of the ice Antarctica is not only why it is deep, its ice sheets stretch kilometers thick, burying mountains, rivers, and even ancient lakes beneath their frozen weight. To explore here is not simply to walk across a surface, but to attempt to pierce the heart of the Earth's most secret chambers. But these chambers are fragile, sealed for millions of years, and even a single careless act could destroy them forever. Scientists drill with extreme caution, using sterilized equipment and carefully monitored procedures. But adventurers seeking glory could shatter ecosystems and erase history. The restrictions prevent this destruction, ensuring that what lies below remains undisturbed until it can be studied without harm. Antarctica hides more beneath its surface than most continents reveal on theirs. It is a land turned inside out, its wonders buried instead of exposed. But those wonders are fragile, too easily broken by greed or curiosity unchecked. By forbidding free exploration, humanity acknowledges that some doors should remain closed until the right key is found. Antarctica's depths are not a playground, they are sacred vaults of time and life. The ocean that guards the land around Antarctica lies the Southern Ocean, a circle of storms and waves unlike any other on Earth. These waters are some of the most dangerous in the world, with waves towering like mountains and winds that roar with relentless fury. To reach Antarctica is often harder than to survive on it, and countless ships have been broken against these waters. Even today, with advanced technology, the ocean acts as a moat, keeping the land beyond, out of reach for most. Exploration is forbidden partly because arrival itself is already nearly impossible without immense risk. The ocean guards Antarctica like a living barrier, a reminder that nature defends its treasures with more strength than any law could enforce. Restrictions, therefore, serve not only to protect the land, but to discourage reckless journeys that would end in tragedy before explorers even set foot on the ice. The ocean surrounding Antarctica is not simply water. It is the first warning that some places are not meant to be claimed. The risk of exploitation by industry beneath Antarctica's ice lie untold riches, oil, gas, coal, and minerals locked away in quantities that could tempt the greed of nations and corporations alike. If exploration were unregulated, the continent would become a battlefield of resource extraction, with drills and machines tearing apart its pristine wilderness. The restrictions on exploration are therefore shields, not just for the ice, but for the future, ensuring that Antarctica does not become another scar of industrial conquest. The world already knows the price of resource exploitation: forests cut down, oceans poisoned, skies choked with smoke. To repeat those mistakes in Antarctica would be unforgivable, for here lies the last land unspoiled. By forbidding free exploration, humanity resists its own destructive tendencies, holding back the tide of greed that has already reshaped every other continent. Antarctica's value lies not in what can be taken from it, but in what is left untouched. The restrictions are therefore not limits, they are wisdom, hard-won from centuries of mistakes. The symbol of limits in an unlimited world. Modern humanity believes it can go anywhere, do anything, and claim whatever it desires. Mountains have been climbed, oceans crossed, skies conquered, and even space has been reached. But Antarctica stands as a symbol of resistance, a place where limits still exist, where the Earth itself says, "This far, no further." The restrictions are therefore not simply rules, they are reminders that human ambition must sometimes bow before something greater. Antarctica is more than a continent. It is a lesson, teaching that exploration without restraint becomes destruction, and that the world does not exist solely for human conquest. By forbidding casual exploration, humanity acknowledges its own boundaries, something rarely admitted elsewhere. In this way, Antarctica is not a land of emptiness, is a land of wisdom, holding a mirror to our restless species and asking whether we can finally learn to leave something untouched. The answer lies in the silence of its snows, a silence worth preserving at any cost. The guardian of Earth's balance, Antarctica's vast ice sheets do more than cover the land, they regulate the entire planet's climate. The white surface reflects sunlight, cooling the Earth, while the cold waters that flow from beneath the ice help drive global ocean currents. This delicate system is the beating heart of climate balance. Uncontrolled exploration could disrupt this system, whether through pollution, drilling, or even minor disturbances that ripple outward. The restrictions exist because Antarctica is not merely local, it is planetary. To damage its balance would be to endanger crops, weather systems, and coastlines across the globe. Antarctica is forbidden not because it is useless, but because it is indispensable. The frozen land is a guardian, holding the line against chaos. Exploration is restricted to protect not only penguins and seals, but every city, every farm, every human being who relies on stable seasons and predictable tides. The land may seem far away, but its influence reaches into every life. To keep it forbidden is not to deny exploration, it is to protect the beating heart of Earth itself. The gatekeepers of frozen silent Antarctica is not just a continent of snow and ice. It is a fortress of silence, where the world's rules bend and break. Those who step upon it are confronted by a land that seems alive in its hostility, as if the very environment resists intrusion. The winds cut like knives, the snow blinds, the eyes, and the endless horizons twist the sense of direction until even the strongest explorers lose themselves in the sameness. This is not land for settlers, not terrain for conquest, but a white expanse that demands humility. The silence here is not. Peace-eyed is a warning, an eternal reminder that this place was not made for human presence. Governments and scientists have long understood this, which is why exploration is so tightly controlled. If men and women were allowed to wander freely into this frozen kingdom, they would vanish into the whiteness, swallowed whole by a continent that shows no mercy. Antarctica's silence is not emptiness, is a voice. And that voice says clearly, enter only with purpose, or not at all. The eternal storms that guard the land around Antarctica's icy coasts swirl storms more powerful than anywhere else. On Earth, walls of wind and snow that can last for weeks without relenting. These storms are not mere weather. They are guardians of the land, keeping intruders at bay with their unending rage. Ships that venture too far find themselves trapped by frozen seas. Airplanes risk being swallowed by whiteouts and explorers. On foot are buried under waves of snow before they even realize the danger. This is not a continent that opens its arms to visitors, is one that lashes out, driving them away. It is no coincidence that treaties forbid unregulated exploration, for the storms themselves act as the first enforcers of that ban to wander. Here, without authorization, is not just a crime against international law, is a crime against nature's boundaries. The storms are ancient, the winds eternal, and they remind humanity that Antarctica has its own guardians forces of nature, so powerful that no one can tame them. The kingdom of ice that binds the world. What most forget is that Antarctica is not simply an empty wilderness, but the anchor of Earth's climate. Its ice reflects sunlight, its cold stabilizes oceans, and its silence controls weather patterns thousands of miles away. To allow unmonitored exploration would be to risk disturbing a balance that sustains every living creature on Earth. A careless footprint, a discarded tool, or an oil spill in its waters could ripple outward, shifting currents, raising seas, and unsettling the delicate systems that allow civilization to thrive. Nations have locked this land under treaties not because they seek to hide something, but because they recognize that Antarctica is not owned, it is borrowed. Its glaciers are a currency that belongs to all time, not merely to the present generation. That is why no one is free to roam its surface as they wish. To explore Antarctica recklessly is to gamble with the foundation of the planet's stability. A gamble humanity cannot afford to lose. The hidden lakes beneath the ice beneath Antarctica, frozen surface-lie lakes sealed for millions of years. Worlds so isolated that they have never known the touch of light or the breath of modern air. Within them may live creatures alien in their design, microbes that evolved in isolation while dinosaurs walked the earth. Scientists treat these lakes like sacred vaults, drilling only with the greatest care for even the smallest contamination. could destroy life forms that have survived untouched for eons. If explorers were allowed to stumble freely across this land, digging or drilling as they pleased, they could obliterate living records older than humanity itself. These hidden lakes are not just geographical curiosities, they are time capsules, carrying within them the possibility of rewriting what we know about life itself. To forbid exploration here is to protect not only Antarctica, but the story of life on Earth, a story written in icy ink beneath miles of frozen silence. The white desert without end Antarctica is called a desert, not because of sand, but because of its dryness. For its frozen air holds almost no moisture. Snow that falls here stays for thousands of years, layer upon layer, until it becomes ice older than civilizations. To walk across this land is to walk across history, yet that history is fragile. A storm can erase tracks within minutes, and the landscape repeats itself endlessly, making navigation nearly impossible. The sameness of the desert disorients, and explorers can wander in circles until exhaustion claims them. Unlike other deserts, there are no oases, no sources of food or water, no shelter from the endless winds. This desert does not allow second chances. Governments forbid free exploration, not only to preserve the land, but to preserve lives. For in this white desert, even the most prepared can vanish without a trace, lost in the blankness of a landscape that has no mercy and no memory. The invisible hand of magnetic chaos near the South Pole. Compasses fail, maps lose meaning, and the Earth's magnetic field bends into confusion. For centuries, navigators have feared these regions, where instruments betray them and direction itself seems a lie. Antarctica hides this chaos under its snow, but for those who attempt to explore freely, it is a trap waiting to spring. Technology falters, signals fail, and the land swallows explorers who cannot find their way back. Restrictions on exploration are not merely about politics, they are about survival against forces humans cannot yet master. Antarctica does not reveal its secrets easily, and its magnetic tricks ensure that no one can wander far without paying a heavy price. The ban on exploration acknowledges this danger, protecting explorers from a land where even the laws of navigation crumble to pieces. The weight of global peace in a world divided by borders. Antarctica is one of the only places claimed not by one nation but by all. The Antarctic Treaty stands as a rare monument to global peace, declaring the land off limits to war, industry, and conquest. To allow unrestricted exploration would shatter this fragile balance, opening doors to greed, conflict, and territorial claims. Instead, humanity has chosen restraint, forbidding all but the most controlled scientific missions. Antarctica is not forbidden because it has nothing to offer. It is forbidden because it offers too much. Beneath its ice lie resources that could spark wars, technologies that could alter the world, and power that would tempt nations into conflict. The restrictions are a shield, preserving peace by keeping temptation buried beneath the ice. This frozen land is not only nature's fortress, but also humanity's truce, a silent agreement carved into the snow, the endless night of the polar winter for half the year. Antarctica lies in complete darkness, a world without dawn where the stars shine endlessly but give no warmth. In this endless night, temperatures plummet, Winds scream like voices of the dead, and the land becomes more alien than the surface of the moon. Exploration during this season is unthinkable, for even machines freeze solid and batteries die within hours. The human body, unshielded, would not last minutes. Restrictions ensure that no reckless expedition is tempted to face this eternal night. For survival here is not possible without monumental preparation. Antarctica's darkness is not simply the absence of light, it is a season of death, a reminder that this land belongs to time itself, not to those who walk upon it. To forbid free exploration is to acknowledge that the land itself sets limits, and those limits cannot be ignored. The library of ice that holds time. Each layer of Antarctic ice is a page in the story of Earth, storing within it tiny bubbles of air, dust, and water that record the planet's climate across hundreds of thousands of years. Scientists who study these layers learn how Earth once breathed, how it warmed and cooled, how it responded to disasters and survived. This library is fragile, and a careless touch can erase entire chapters. That is why exploration is forbidden except under the strictest conditions. Antarctica is not only ice, it is memory, the archive of a planet that speaks through silence. By protecting it, humanity preserves knowledge that may one day be the key to surviving our own mistakes. To explore freely would be to tear out pages from the book of Earth's history, leaving humanity blind to its own past and vulnerable to its future. The last untouched frontier, Antarctica, is the final wilderness, the last frontier on Earth where human footprints are rare and temporary. To keep it restricted is to admit that not every land must be conquered, not every resource must be consumed. In a world where jungles are cut, oceans polluted, and mountains drilled, Antarctica remains a sanctuary of purity. It is forbidden because it must remain unspoiled, a symbol of what Earth once was before human ambition reshaped it. Allowing unrestricted exploration would destroy this symbol, turning the last pure land into another playground for greed. By leaving it untouched, humanity declares that restraint is possible, that there is still one place where nature reigns without interference. Antarctica is not just ice, it is the last untouched dream, and that dream must remain forbidden if it is to survive. The whisper of ancient mountains beneath the white shroud of Antarctica lies a secret mountain, ranges taller than the Alps, valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, hidden for millions of years under ice thicker than any human imagination can measure. These mountains have never felt the warmth of sunlight or the tread of human feet. Their peaks are buried under frozen weight, locked in a timeless slumber, untouched by weather or life as we know it. Scientists have only glimpsed them through radar, their shapes appearing like ghosts beneath the ice, revealing an ancient world sealed away. If humans were allowed to roam freely, drilling and blasting their way down, we could destroy not just the ice, but the hidden geography that may hold clues to Earth's earliest history. These mountains are guardians of a forgotten world, and they demand respect. That is why Antarctica is forbidden, because what lies beneath the ice is more precious than gold, and once disturbed, it cannot be restored. The graveyard of fallen expeditions. Antarctica remembers those who tried to conquer it, from the earliest explorers who froze to death only miles from safety, to expeditions swallowed by storms and crevasses the land is littered with the ghosts of failure. Some bodies still remain, perfectly preserved in the ice, staring eternally into the blizzard that claimed them. Each grave tells the same story. This is not a land for man. Allowing unrestricted exploration would mean opening the gates to tragedy once again, letting reckless adventurers challenge the land and fall, as so many have before. Governments restrict access, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, knowing that Antarctica is a predator disguised as a continent, and those who enter unprepared are prey. The ice holds its secrets tightly, and among them are the bones of those who dared to ask too much of it. The land where technology fails in the modern world, technology gives humans a sense of invincibility. Satellites map the Earth, machines survive space, and submarines dive into the deepest seas. Yet in Antarctica, technology bends and breaks. Batteries die within minutes. Metal freezes until it shatters. Engines stall as if the continent itself rejects intrusion. Radio signals vanish into the storms. Drones fall from the sky, and GPS becomes unreliable. Antarctica is a place where the modern age crumbles, and the world reverts to a primal state where only nature rules. Restrictions exist because the continent cannot be mastered by gadgets or machines. It strips away human arrogance and reveals our weakness. To wander here with faith in technology is to be betrayed by it. The ban on free exploration acknowledges this truth, that Antarctica is still one of the only places on Earth where humanity is utterly powerless. The forbidden wealth beneath the ice. Antarctica is not barren, it hides unimaginable wealth. Beneath its ice lie vast reserves of coal, oil, and precious minerals, resources that could fuel entire nations. Yet to touch them would mean destruction on a global scale, for extracting them would melt ice, poison waters, and destabilize ecosystems across the planet. The Antarctic Treaty forbids exploration, not because there is nothing to find, but because there is too much. The ice is a vault not meant to be opened, its riches a temptation locked away for humanity's own survival. If the world allowed free exploration, greed would descend upon this land, carving away purity for profit. By forbidding entry, nations acknowledge that some treasures must remain buried, that the price of discovery here is too great for humanity to pay. The home of creatures unknown, though it seems lifeless, Antarctica teems with hidden life. From microscopic organisms that thrive in freezing temperatures to colossal creatures beneath the Southern Ocean, the continent is alive in ways we cannot fully comprehend. To disturb this fragile web of life with unchecked exploration would risk wiping out species before we even know they exist. Some scientists believe entire ecosystems thrive beneath the ice, isolated for millions of years, waiting to be studied with care. If explorers came freely, trampling the snow and drilling without limits, these delicate life forms could vanish forever. The ban protects them, for Antarctica is not just humanity's frontier, it is home to beings who have endured far longer than we have. In truth, no one is allowed to explore Antarctica, not because it is empty, but because it is full of life, too rare and too sacred to endanger. The illusion of endless die-in summer. Antarctica glows under a sun that never sets, bathing the land in a surreal, unending light. This eternal day is beautiful, yet dangerous, for it distorts time itself. Sleep becomes impossible, exhaustion creeps in, and the mind begins to break under the weight of a sun that never leaves. Explorers trapped in this cycle have lost their grip on reality, wandering the ice in madness, unable to tell hours from days. Restrictions on exploration exist not just for physical safety, but for mental survival. For Antarctica plays tricks on the mind as well as the body. Its endless day is not a blessing, it is a test, a reminder that this land is built on extremes designed to keep humanity away. No one is allowed to explore freely because the land itself wages war against the human spirit. The temptation of power. What is forbidden often becomes the most desirable, and Antarctica's forbidden status makes it one of the greatest temptations in history. To control it would mean to control climate data, untapped resources, and strategic territory at the bottom of the world. That is why treaties and restrictions are not just about science, they are about preventing nations from tearing each other apart in the struggle for dominance. The land is forbidden because it could ignite wars more devastating than any before. To open Antarctica would not just mean exploration, but conflict, and that conflict would leave the continent scarred forever. By keeping it closed, the world avoids this temptation, preserving Antarctica not only as a natural wonder, but as a fragile truce between nations. The sound of the shifting ice. Antarctica is alive with sound. The ice groans, cracks, and shifts as glaciers move like rivers frozen in time. These sounds are warnings, the voice of a land in constant motion, where the ground beneath you could split open without warning, swallowing everything into blue depths. Explorers hear these cracks echo across the silence, reminders that the very floor they walk on cannot be trusted. Restrictions keep people away because Antarctica is unstable in ways the eye cannot see. To stand on the ice is to stand on the edge of collapse, never knowing when the continent will open its jaws and drag you down. The sound of Antarctica is not music, it is a warning, and that warning is why no one is free to wander it without restraint. The place beyond human law. Everywhere else on Earth, human law rules. Borders are drawn, nations govern, and justice is enforced. But in Antarctica, no nation owns the land. It exists outside sovereignty, a place where ordinary laws do not apply. Instead, international treaties stand as fragile guardians, and without them, chaos would reign. Exploration is forbidden because, without law, there can be no accountability. If explorers harmed the land, polluted its waters, or destroyed its life, who would punish them? The land itself cannot protect itself, so humanity protects it through absence, forbidding free exploration. Antarctica is beyond law because it must be beyond greed, a land preserved not by ownership but by silence. To explore it freely would be to strip away that protection, leaving it vulnerable to the worst of human ambition. The mirror of humanity's future. Antarctica is more than a frozen land, it is a mirror that shows humanity its possible future. As ice melts, seas rise, and storms grow, the continent reveals what is at stake if the planet continues to warm. To explore it freely would not just risk damaging it would risk blinding us to the warnings it carries. Antarctica must be observed carefully, studied with restraint, because it speaks to us of survival. Its silence is not emptiness, but prophecy. That is why it remains forbidden, not as punishment, but as preservation. To protect Antarctica is to protect ourselves, for the fate of the ice is the fate of humanity, the continent of endless night. When winter arrives in Antarctica, the sun disappears for months, plunging the land into a darkness so complete it swallows all sense of time. Imagine standing in a world where the sky never lightens, where the stars shine cold and eternal, and where even the moonlight feels hostile. In this endless night, temperatures plummet to levels unimaginable, and storms rage with winds that can shred steel. To wander here would be to walk in a void with no guide but the icy winds whispering through the blackness. Human senses fail. Eyes see nothing, clocks lose meaning, and minds fracture under the crushing weight of eternal night. Exploration is forbidden because survival in such darkness is nearly impossible. Antarctica is not merely dark, it is a canvas of oblivion, and no one is permitted to explore its depths because the land itself erases those who dare to linger in its shadow. The prison of eternal ice sheets of Antarctica are not static, they are alive, shifting, growing, and consuming everything around them. They move silently, like rivers of frozen time, swallowing mountains, valleys, and even entire lakes. Anything caught within them becomes entombed forever, sealed away for millennia. Scientists have found air bubbles from 2 million years ago, perfectly preserved inside the ice, whispering stories of ancient atmospheres. If humans were allowed to explore freely, every footprint, every drill, every vehicle would be swallowed and preserved, scars lasting longer than civilizations themselves. The continent's ice is both a prison and a guardian, and the reason exploration is forbidden is because we cannot afford to scar eternity. Antarctica keeps its history frozen, and it does not permit humanity to carve its name into that timeline without consequence. The storms that hunt the living Antarctica storms are not like storms elsewhere on Earth. They rise suddenly, with no warning, walls of wind moving faster than any hurricane, erasing all visibility within seconds. In these storms, explorers vanish without a trace, their tracks buried instantly, their equipment scattered like dust. The land hunts with its weather, turning explorers into prey. These storms are so powerful they can drag entire research stations off their foundations, crush vehicles, and freeze skin in minutes. To allow free exploration would mean unleashing countless tragedies, for no human can outrun the predator that is the Antarctic storm. The continent forbids us entry not with laws but with winds, and that is why no one is allowed to wander freely. It is not a place of shelter, but of relentless attack. The silence that breaks the mind. Antarctica is the quietest place on Earth, a silence so complete it becomes unbearable. In this silence, the human mind begins to unravel, hearing whispers that are not there, inventing sounds to fill the void. Explorers have reported phantom footsteps, voices calling their names, and the sensation of being followed when no one was there. The silence itself becomes alive, pressing down with an invisible weight. This psychological pressure is one of the continent's cruelest weapons, a reminder that it does not welcome intruders. The restrictions on exploration exist not just for physical safety, but for mental survival. For Antarctica is a place where silence kills as surely as cold. To open it freely to humanity would be to unleash madness, a land that devours sanity with nothing more than its eternal quiet. The last untouched sanctuary, Antarctica, is the only place left on Earth that has not been touched by war, conquest, or industrial exploitation. Its ice and waters remain pure, a sanctuary where life thrives without human interference. To allow unrestricted exploration would mean breaking the last sanctuary humanity has. Every other continent has been scarred, mined, drilled, polluted, and conquered. Antarctica stands apart, preserved by its isolation and by the treaties that shield it from our greed. The reason no one is allowed to explore freely is because this is the last untouched wilderness on the planet, a reminder of what Earth once was before humanity carved it into pieces. Antarctica's forbidden status is not a cage, but a blessing, a rare place where the world still belongs to itself and not to us. The gateway to hidden worlds deep beneath Antarctica's ice-lie subglacial lakes, sealed off for millions of years, untouched by light or air from the surface. These lakes may contain alien-like life, organisms that evolved in isolation, unlike anything else on Earth. To explore them recklessly would risk contamination, wiping out entire ecosystems before we even discover them. That is why scientists approach with extreme caution and why governments forbid free exploration. Antarctica is not just a continent, it is a gateway to hidden worlds, places where secrets of evolution and survival lie frozen in time. To allow anyone to drill and wander would be to destroy these secrets before they can be understood. The ban exists because these worlds are too fragile, too rare, and too important for the careless hands of explorers seeking glory. The mirror of the cosmos, Antarctica, is more like another planet than any other place on Earth. Its landscapes resemble Mars. Its ice fields echo the frozen moons of Jupiter, and its silence mirrors the void of space. That is why space agencies test their equipment here, because to survive Antarctica is to survive the cosmos. Yet even here, survival is barely possible, a reminder that humanity is fragile. If free exploration were allowed, countless would come unprepared for a land that rejects them. Antarctica is forbidden because it is too close to the alien, too much like the emptiness of space where human life has no foothold. To walk here is to glimpse the future of exploration beyond Earth, but also to realize why we are not yet ready. The land is closed because it is a reflection of the universe itself, vast, merciless, and untamed. The custodian of Earth's balance, Antarctica is the heart of Earth's climate system, a giant mirror reflecting sunlight, a frozen engine regulating winds and oceans. To disturb it would mean disturbing the balance of the entire planet. Free exploration, drilling, and construction would not remain local. They would ripple outward, changing weather across the world. That is why Antarctica is forbidden, because it belongs to everyone and to no one. Its safety tied to the survival of all life on Earth. To harm it would be to harm ourselves. And so the laws that restrict exploration are not walls but shields, protecting humanity from its own short-sightedness. Antarctica is not just a continent, it is Earth's custodian, holding balance in its frozen grip, the place where time stands still everywhere else on Earth. Life moves, seasons change, and history leaves marks. But in Antarctica, time seems frozen. Landscapes remain unchanged for millennia. Winds carve the same patterns over and over, and glaciers march slowly, indifferent to the ages. To walk here is to step outside history, into a place where nothing matters but survival. This timelessness is fragile, and to allow unrestricted exploration would break it, filling it with noise, pollution, and scars that would last forever. Antarctica is forbidden because it is the last place where time itself has not been rewritten by man. It is a realm of stillness, and stillness must be preserved. To protect Antarctica is to protect the illusion of eternity, a rare gift that humanity cannot afford to squander, the land that does not forgive above all else. Antarctica is forbidden because it does not forgive. Unlike other places, there are no second chances here. A mistake in the desert may leave you thirsty. A mistake at sea may leave you stranded. But a mistake in Antarctica leaves you dead, preserved forever in ice. That is why no one is allowed to explore freely, because the land will never bend to human will. It cannot be conquered, only respected, and respect is best shown through distance. Antarctica exists as a reminder that the Earth still holds places beyond human dominion, places where the price of arrogance is death. It is not cruelty that forbids us, it is wisdom. The land does not forgive, and that truth alone explains why Antarctica remains closed to all but the most cautious. The labyrinth beneath the ice, beneath Antarctica's endless sheet of white lies a hidden labyrinth, a network of tunnels, caves, and hollow chambers carved by melting water and ancient geothermal heat. These caverns stretch for miles, some big enough to fit cathedrals, others twisting like veins under the frozen skin of the earth. But they are unstable, collapsing without warning, sealing anything inside forever. The deeper explorers go, the stranger the atmosphere becomes. Heat pockets form strange fogs. Echoes twist into whispers, and shadows seem to move of their own accord. To open the continent to unrestricted exploration would invite endless disasters. For the labyrinth is alive, a shifting puzzle that consumes anyone who enters. That is why access is forbidden, because these hidden worlds are not places humans were meant to tread. The land of buried giants. Antarctica has not always been ice. Once it was green, covered in forests where dinosaurs roamed and rivers carved valleys. Today, buried under miles of ice, fossils remain, entire lost worlds preserved in silence. Beneath the frozen crust, there may be the bones of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth, waiting to be uncovered. But to reach them requires tearing open the land, drilling and shattering the frozen layers of time. To allow such exploration would be to erase secrets that survived for millions of years. That is why Antarctica remains locked. It is a graveyard of giants, and graveyards are meant to be respected. The continent forbids us, not out of cruelty, but because its dead still hold power, and disturbing them may bring consequences humanity is not prepared for. The ocean that devours surrounding Antarctica is the Southern Ocean, one of the most violent bodies of water on the planet. Its currents are so powerful they circle the Earth without stopping, creating storms that swallow ships whole. Icebergs drift like mountains, unpredictable and merciless, calving without warning and crushing anything in their path. To reach Antarctica by sea is to challenge an ocean that was never meant for human crossing. Free exploration would invite fleets of adventurers, but the ocean would devour them, as it has for centuries. Countless ships lie wrecked beneath its waves, silent graves to those who believed they could conquer the waters of the South. The ban is not just law, but nature itself. The ocean guards the white continent, ensuring it remains forbidden. The creatures that do not belong while Antarctica seems barren. Life thrives in its shadows, creatures, adapted to conditions no human could endure. Some live in the ocean, glowing in the darkness. Others survive in lakes, sealed off from the world for millions of years. These organisms are fragile, alien, and utterly unique. To expose them to careless exploration would destroy them in an instant. But some say the reverse is truth, that what lurks in those lakes and waters could destroy us. Microbes and life forms, unlike anything in the known world. That is why exploration is restricted, because Antarctica is not only home to life, but to life that may not belong alongside us. The creatures are reminders that the Earth holds mysteries we are not ready to meet. And so the continent closes its gates. The mountains that shouldn't exist deep within Antarctica rise mountain ranges hidden beneath the ice, taller than the Alps and stretching for hundreds of miles. These ranges, called the Gambritsov Mountains, should not exist. They defy geological logic, preserved beneath ice when they should have eroded millions of years ago. Their survival suggests secrets of Earth's deep past, perhaps even evidence of forgotten worlds. But they are locked away, unreachable, buried under layers so thick no human can easily touch them. If Antarctica were opened to exploration, these ranges would be mined, drilled, and desecrated before their mystery was understood. That is why the continent is forbidden, because some mountains are not meant to be climbed, and some secrets are not meant to be broken. The air that burns the flesh. Antarctica's air is so dry, so thin, and so brutally cold that it burns skin like fire. Exposed flesh freezes in seconds, lungs ache with every breath, and eyes crystallize with tears that never fall. In some regions, the wind scours the land so violently it strips the very air of moisture, leaving conditions harsher than the surface of Mars. To explore freely here is to die quickly, without drama, without hope. The land enforces its own ban by making the very act of breathing an impossible task. That is why the rules exist, because Antarctica itself makes exploration deadly, punishing those who underestimate its power. The ice that remembers size is not lifeless, it carries memory. Every layer of Antarctica's frozen crust holds the story of a year, a century, an age. To drill too deeply is to read the history of Earth itself, volcanic eruptions, ancient atmospheres, even whispers of long-forgotten extinctions. But such drilling carries risks, for the deeper you go, the more unstable the layers become, and the more chance there is of unleashing something locked away for millions of years. To explore carelessly is to risk waking ancient plagues, frozen pathogens that once roamed the Earth. That is why exploration is forbidden. The ice remembers too much, and not all memories should be disturbed. The shadows of lost expeditions and has always lured the brave and the desperate, and countless expeditions have vanished into its void. Their names are whispered in history: Scott, Amundsen, Shackleton. But for every story told, there are many forgotten, lost to the ice, with no graves and no markers. Their camps remain buried and preserved, their supplies still sealed in frost, their last footprints frozen in time. Antarctica forbids exploration because it is already a graveyard of ambition. It is not meant to be touched, and those who tried are warnings carved into silence. The land beyond the treaty, the Antarctic Treaty, was signed to preserve the continent for peace and science. But many whisper of reasons that are never spoken. Perhaps it is because nations know what lies beneath the oil, the minerals, the resources beyond imagination, and fear what would happen if greed was unleashed. Perhaps it is because governments discovered something buried there, something too powerful or too dangerous to reveal. Whatever the truth, the treaty stands as a wall, and the reason no one is allowed to explore is not just survival, but secrecy. Antarctica may be forbidden, not because it is empty, shroud. One day, humanity may break the rules, driven by hunger for land and resources. But that future carries a warning. The land that has been forbidden for so long is not empty, and when it awakens, it may not forgive. Antarctica's restrictions exist to delay that day, to protect both us and the land itself. To open it fully would be to unleash something irreversible. The continent is forbidden because it is the last lock on Earth's mysteries, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The endless white desert Antarctica is often imagined as a land of icebergs and glaciers, but much of it is a deserta frozen wasteland where snow rarely falls, and the land stretches in silence beyond the horizon. Unlike any desert on Earth, it has no shifting dunes or oases, only endless plains of white, interrupted by jagged peaks of ice. To cross it is to lose all sense of direction. The world blurs into nothing but light and emptiness. Compasses fail, GPS signals falter, and even shadows vanish under the brilliance of the sun. Free exploration here is impossible because the land erases all signs of human presence, swallowing travelers into its blankness. The desert is not simply harsh, it is alive in its refusal to let anyone stay. The ice that breathes glaciers may seem unmoving, but they are alive with motion, slow rivers of ice grinding their way toward the sea. They crack, groan, and roar like giants in slumber, shifting without warning and swallowing anything in their path. To wander here freely would be to risk being devoured by the frozen earth itself, trapped beneath crushing walls that seal shut forever. The ice breathes, and in its breath is power beyond human strength. That is why Antarctica resists exploration, because its very skin moves with a life of its own, erasing all who dare stand in its way. The storms that have no mercy winds in Antarctica are unlike any in the world. These katabatic winds, born from gravity itself, descend from the ice cap with unstoppable force. They carry shards of snow and ice sharp enough to cut skin, freezing anything they touch. To explore without protection is suicide, and even with protection, survival is never guaranteed. The storms come without warning, turning day into night and silence into fury. That is why exploration is forbidden. For Antarctica's storms are not whether they are guardians, merciless and eternal. The lakes that shouldn't exist beneath Antarctica's ice lie lakes untouched by light for millions of years, sealed away under miles of frozen crust. These lakes, like Lake Vostok, are so alien that scientists fear what life may lurk inside. To pierce them is to risk contamination, either destroying fragile ecosystems or unleashing organisms humanity has never known. Such exploration is tightly controlled, forbidden to anyone but the most careful researchers, because the consequences could spread far beyond the continent. Antarctica's lakes are mirrors of forgotten worlds, and they remain closed because opening them may change everything we know about life itself. The temptation of riches beneath Antarctica's ice lies unimaginable: wealth, oil, gas, coal, and minerals untouched by human hands. In a world hungry for resources, the continent is a prize that every nation secretly desires. But the Antarctic Treaty forbids exploitation, keeping the land off limits to protect it from becoming another battlefield of greed. The reason no one is allowed to explore freely is not only survival, but politics. If Antarctica were opened, nations would rush to claim it, tearing it apart for profit. The ban exists because the white continent is too valuable, too fragile, and too tempting to resist. The frozen time capsules everywhere in Antarctica. The ice holds relics of the past, ancient forests, insects, and even air bubbles from millions of years ago are sealed within its frozen walls. To break them open recklessly would destroy priceless windows into Earth's history. But to preserve them requires strict control, and so exploration is restricted. The continent is a time machine, but one that must be handled carefully. Antarctica forbids explorers because it holds the memory of the planet, a memory that can be lost in an instant if disturbed. The sunless winters for half the year. Antarctica is locked in darkness, the sun vanishing for months at a time. In this eternal night, the cold deepens, storms rage endlessly, and the land becomes alien. A world without warmth or hope. To explore in winter is to risk madness, isolation, and death. The darkness consumes time, erasing day and night, leaving only an endless void. That is why free exploration is forbidden, because half the continent's year is a season no human can survive without extraordinary preparation. Antarctica keeps its secrets hidden in the long night, revealing them only to those who wait. The ice walls at the edge along the coast of Antarctica rise cliffs of ice, hundreds of feet tall, forming barriers that stretch for miles. They calve into the sea without warning, collapsing with the force of an earthquake, creating waves that could sink ships. To land upon the continent, one must first cross these walls, but they are merciless, guarding the land like fortresses. That is why exploration is limited, because Antarctica is not simply a landmass, but a fortress of ice, surrounded by walls that refuse entry. The continent is locked away, not only by law, but by nature's own design. The unknown beneath the crust. Scientists suspect that beneath Antarctica's ice lies volcanic activity, vast geothermal systems, and perhaps even networks of liquid water flowing like underground rivers. These systems remain hidden, mysterious, and potentially dangerous. To drill recklessly would risk earthquakes, eruptions, or worse, catastrophic destabilization of the ice sheet itself. The ban on exploration exists because what lies beneath is unknown, and the unknown should never be disturbed without reason. Antarctica's crust may hold the key to the planet's future, but for now, it remains forbidden, a secret not yet ready to be revealed. The last great mystery. Antarctica is the last frontier, the final place on Earth that remains truly untouched. In a world mapped, explored, and conquered, it stands as the last great mystery. A land that resists ownership and exploitation. To open it would be to destroy its uniqueness, to erase the last place where nature remains sovereign over humanity. That is why no one is allowed to explore freely, because Antarctica is not just ice and snow, but the final reminder that the world still holds wonders beyond our reach. The ban is not only protection, but preservation of mystery itself. The continent of silence, Antarctica, is not only empty of people. Beyond the howling winds, there is an eerie silence, the kind that makes the heart pound louder than footsteps. In this silence, every movement feels forbidden, every sound like a violation of sacred ground. Explorers who venture too far often describe hearing nothing but their own breathing, a reminder of their fragility in a place so vast it does not notice their existence. This silence is why exploration is restricted, because it drives humans to madness, reminding them that they do not belong. Antarctica is not only remote, it is sacred in its silence, a cathedral of ice that resists intrusion. The pressure of the treaty, the Antarctic Treaty, is often spoken of as a symbol of peace, where nations agreed to protect the continent. But beneath that peace lies pressure, the constant watch of governments ensuring that no one exploits what lies hidden. Satellites monitor, stations keep logs, and any unauthorized movement raises suspicion. The ban on free exploration is not only about safety, is about power. Each nation knows that the first to break the rules could start a chain reaction of greed. Antarctica is forbidden not just by ice and storm, but by politics and the fear of collapse. The creatures of the deepmost people think Antarctica is lifeless, but beneath its frozen seas, live creatures stranger than any fantasy. Colossal squid, giant isopods, and organisms glowing in the dark make the waters a world apart. Scientists have barely scratched the surface, and already they fear contamination. To let explorers roam free would risk disrupting these delicate ecosystems, releasing balance into chaos. Antarctica's creatures are not ours to disturb, and so the seas remain closed. The ban exists because beneath the ice, life thrives in ways we cannot control. Life that must be left untouched until we truly understand it. The fear of collapse. Antarctica holds 60% of the world's fresh water, locked in its frozen grip. If disturbed recklessly, even small changes could tip the balance, causing sea levels to rise and reshape the globe. That is why exploration is forbidden, because Antarctica is not only a land to be studied, is a trigger, a lever upon which the fate of humanity rests. Any careless step could awaken forces beyond our control, melting ice, flooding cities, and rewriting coastlines. The continent is forbidden not only to protect itself, but to protect us from what happens if it falls. The cold that burns Antarctica's temperatures fall so low they rival the surface of Mars. At these extremes, metal snaps like glass, fuel turns to gel, and skin freezes in seconds. It is a cold that does not merely chill, it burns, blackening flesh and ending life in minutes. Free exploration is impossible here because no human body, no matter how prepared, can resist forever. The cold is Antarctica's strongest guardian, a natural wall stronger than politics or treaties. It is the reason why only the most limited, controlled journeys are allowed, and why the land remains untouched by ordinary feet. The air too thin to breathe high atop Antarctica's interior. The air thins until every breath is a struggle. The continent rises higher than most expect, with plateaus stretching far above sea level. For explorers, this means less oxygen, dizziness, confusion, and collapse. Combined with the cold, the wind, and the blinding light, the thin air makes survival almost impossible. Free exploration is forbidden because the continent itself suffocates those who challenge it, erasing them quietly without need for force. Antarctica is not only a desert of ice, it is a desert of breath. The shifting magnetic field's compasses, the oldest tool of exploration, betray their users in Antarctica. The magnetic South Pole drifts unpredictably, confusing instruments and leading travelers astray. Add whiteout conditions and endless snow, and the land becomes a labyrinth of disorientation. That is why exploration is banned, because navigation itself collapses here. The continent refuses to be mapped in human terms, its poles shifting like secrets never meant to be shared. To wander too far without strict guidance is to vanish into nothingness, swallowed by a land that does not allow return. The illusion of safety at research stations. Life seems almost normal: heated rooms, supplies flown in, scientists working in controlled labs, but beyond the walls is death waiting. This illusion of safety makes the rules stricter, not looser. Exploration is banned because the line between survival and disaster is thinner here than anywhere on Earth. A single misstep outside the zone of safety, and the Antarctic shows its true nature. That is why freedom does not exist here. Safety is an illusion granted by fragile machines, and without them, the continent reclaims everything. The myths that linger for centuries. Antarctica has been a canvas for myth-lost cities, alien bases, hollow earth entrances, and hidden pyramids buried in ice. Though science dismisses these tales, they linger in popular imagination. The continent's ban on exploration only fuels the mystery, making people wonder what is being hidden. In truth, the myths themselves become another reason for restriction, because curiosity drives recklessness, and reckless explorers risk both their lives and the delicate environment. Antarctica remains forbidden because mystery is part of its essence, a land that thrives on being unknown, the land that belongs to no one above all. Antarctica is unique because it belongs to no single nation, no empire, no company. It is the last unclaimed frontier, a land outside human ownership. Free exploration is forbidden because ownership always follows footsteps. To leave it open would be to invite conquest. That is why the rules exist, to protect the last land where no borders divide, no armies march, and no flags rule. Antarctica is forbidden because it must remain untouchable, a reminder that not everything on Earth is ours to take.